I never imagined my life could flip in a heartbeat. One text, one accidental screenshot, and the world I thought I knew crumbled. She smiled at me every morning, whispered promises I believed in, and I held her hand like a fool. But behind that perfect mask, a secret brewed. Money, favors, whispers in the night. I saw it all in pixels I wasn't supposed to. And in that moment, anger and disbelief collided. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I simply began observing, waiting, watching, learning. The game had changed, and I was no longer the naive player. Her betrayal wasn't loud. It was calculated, hidden in plain sight. I watched as she arranged meetings, accepted gifts, smiled with people whose intentions weren't mine. I could confront her, shout, break things, but I realized something. Rage solves nothing. It blinds. I wanted her to feel what I did. Slowly. Intimately. Every step she took, I mapped. Every lie she whispered, I archived. And when she laughed, believing she was untouchable, I smiled behind the curtain. Patience was my weapon, and patience I knew would exact a toll far greater than a moment of fury. I started small. Subtle disruptions in her plans. A misdelivered package, a canceled appointment, a phone call that arrived too late. She blamed coincidence. I watched her frown, try to understand why the universe suddenly tilted against her. Friends noticed her irritability. Colleagues questioned her reliability. I stayed in the shadows, invisible yet omnipresent. Every day, a tiny ripple in her perfect life, each one invisible to the casual eye, and each ripple brought her closer to the truth. Someone had noticed. Someone was aware. Someone had begun dismantling her facade, piece by piece. I didn't confront her about the betrayal, not yet. I let her enjoy her illusions a little longer. Every lie she spun became a trap. Every half-truth she whispered was a thread I pulled slowly, invisibly. People began to doubt her stories. Her social media influence waned. Friends withdrew. Family questioned her choices. And I sat silently, sipping coffee, smiling at the poetic justice unfolding naturally. There's an elegance in letting karma weave itself, letting the universe punish those who think they are untouchable, while you remain untouched. She didn't see it coming, and that was the beauty. Her nights grew restless. Texts left unanswered, calls ignored. She began questioning her own actions, feeling the weight of shadows she thought were light. Meanwhile, I documented everything, proofs, receipts, screenshots. Not for revenge, in anger, but as evidence of inevitability. Every plan she had was now fragile. Every word she uttered tainted with exposure. And when she tried to manipulate others, claiming victimhood, the cracks showed. Slowly, carefully, the structure of lies she built collapsed under the scrutiny I never revealed. I let her fall on her own missteps, elegantly, inexorably. I entered her social world like a ghost. Subtle reminders of her misdeeds sent through mutual friends. Anonymous tips about her schemes reached her allies. People began questioning her loyalty, her integrity. She panicked. Every action she took to correct perceptions only tightened the noose. And yet I never acted directly. I let her paranoia grow. Let her anxiety bloom like a poisonous flower. The thrill wasn't cruelty. It was the satisfaction of letting her learn consequences naturally while I observed from a distance. Every misstep was a lesson, every panic a melody of poetic justice. She tried to maintain her charm, tried to rebuild credibility. She posted carefully crafted apologies, photos that hinted at innocence, videos claiming hardship. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My archives spoke louder than any speech. Friends and followers began noticing inconsistencies, small lies contradicting larger lies. Her empire of deceit started crumbling under the weight of evidence she couldn't erase. And when she reached out to manipulate, to regain sympathy, I simply ignored. Silence became my ally, patience my most formidable weapon, and truth, the final verdict she couldn't escape. Every day I watched her anxiety deepen. She glanced over her shoulder, second-guessed messages, feared exposure at every turn. Small inconveniences became monumental in her mind. I did not escalate, did not intervene. I merely observed. Her life, once carefree and entitled, now teetered on uncertainty. Each opportunity she lost, every whispered suspicion from colleagues or friends was a result of her choices. And I smiled quietly, knowing karma moves deliberately. The universe doesn't need my hands to punish. It only needed my patience to let her see the consequences she never expected. She began doubting even her closest allies. Conversations that once flowed easily now felt strained. Trust eroded. I released small truths carefully, anonymously, to ensure maximum impact. Friends confronted her. Family questioned her, and the lies she once wielded confidently became chains. I never interacted, never acknowledged her suffering directly. She felt it, though. That gnawing unease, the realization that someone knew everything, that someone had been silently orchestrating her downfall without a single harsh word, ate at her pride. And I knew she understood. It was me. The silence screamed louder than any confrontation. She attempted desperate moves. Public appearances, false claims, sudden generosity. Explanations meant to charm. None worked. The threads she clung to snapped, one by one. Every social post became a trap for herself. Every attempt at redemption backfired, subtly, invisibly. I was never cruel. I was precise, patient, a shadow in her life she could not fully perceive. And as she realized her influence waning, her control slipping, the panic grew. She started questioning her every decision, haunted by the awareness of someone who understood the truth and remained untouchable, yet omnipresent in her unraveling reality. Every conversation she had with others carried my silent influence. Hints dropped here, reminders left there. Her confidence faltered, her smile forced. I never needed to raise my voice. She learned the art of regret in whispers. When she tried to confront me indirectly, through mutual friends, I maintained calm neutrality. Every accusation she made, every story she twisted, only reinforced the weight of her lies. Slowly, meticulously, her life began resembling a house of cards, and I was the quiet wind outside, invisible but inevitable, knowing that each collapse was a testament to patience, strategy, and the natural justice of the universe. She began seeking validation in public forums, posting half-truths about betrayal, victimhood, heartbreak. I watched with quiet amusement, knowing I held the receipts of her deception. Followers questioned her narrative, exposing contradictions she couldn't explain away. Friends withdrew, some laughed quietly at the inconsistencies, while family debated her integrity. I stayed silent, observing. Every misstep she made, every manipulation she tried, was a nail in the coffin of her own credibility. And when she reached for sympathy, I let reality respond. Karma doesn't need hands. It only requires patience and awareness. Her attempts to manipulate me directly failed. Messages filled with apologies, hints of longing, regrets, were met with silence. I didn't reply because closure wasn't mine to give. She had ignored mine for months. I had watched her prioritize greed, selfishness, convenience. The pain she inflicted required no intervention. My strategy was simple. Let her live with her choices. Slowly, the network of lies she relied on began collapsing. Every friend who doubted her, every follower who saw the truth, every minor failure she blamed on others. became part of the symphony of justice I conducted quietly, patiently, invisibly. Her finances suffered. Mismanaged deals, failed schemes, forgotten appointments, all consequences of the web she spun. I never touched her money, never sabotaged directly. I simply observed and nudged subtly, allowing natural outcomes to occur. Stress became constant, anxiety her companion. She looked for support, only to find mistrust and skepticism. Her social media influence waned, credibility drained. And every night she lay awake, haunted by choices she had made carelessly. I smiled in the quiet, knowing justice had a patient rhythm. The universe, with my guidance invisible, was teaching her a lesson she couldn't ignore. She attempted reconciliation publicly, crafting stories of regret, of personal growth. I did not intervene. Instead, I let her community respond. Friends questioned, followers doubted, and her narrative crumbled. Each lie she once relied on for sympathy was now the chains restricting her. She realized accountability cannot be faked indefinitely. Slowly, methodically, I watched as she faced consequences. No chaos, no screaming, just the quiet unfolding of truth. And in her realization, in the unraveling of control she once possessed, I found satisfaction. Karma, patient and silent, moved with deliberate elegance, and she was its student. Her attempts at influence diminished. Events she organized fell through. Collaborations ended. Friends distanced themselves. Every lie she once believed secure now acted as a boomerang. I had done nothing overtly, yet everything changed. The game she played so recklessly now became hers to lose. Anxiety, frustration, and doubt grew in her chest. She began questioning motives, intentions, reality itself. And I remained calm, composed, the observer of poetic justice. The lesson was clear. Deception carries weight, and those who betray trust will eventually feel the gravity of their own choices, silently, inexorably. She reached out again, tentative, apologetic, almost afraid. I did not respond. She had sought comfort in lies, ignored honesty, prioritized selfish gain. Closure was not a gift I owed her. She needed to feel the isolation, the consequences of decisions made with greed in mind. Slowly, the network of friends, followers, and colleagues who once adored her turned away. Guided by truth, I revealed quietly. Each realization she faced was magnified by her inability to manipulate. And in her growing solitude, she finally understood. Someone had watched, observed, and allowed natural justice to unfold without a single harsh word or confrontation. Her life had shifted entirely. Trust, influence, credibility, everything she once controlled was fragile now. I remained distant, unshaken, a silent witness to her unraveling. Messages went unanswered, invitations ignored. Every attempt to regain normalcy failed. She began recognizing patterns, understanding that consequences follow actions, and that lies, no matter how clever, eventually emerge. I never celebrated aloud. No shouting, no rage, just the quiet knowledge that integrity and patience surpass fury and impulsive retaliation. Karma, orchestrated subtly, had performed its symphony. Months passed. She became a shadow of the person I once loved, haunted by choices she thought trivial. Social circles shrank, influence dwindled, reputation questioned. I remained untouchable, untouched, silent. Not because I lacked emotion, but because I understood the power of strategy and timing. Every revelation, every consequence was a product of patience and observation. And when she reached for explanations, apologies, or reconciliation, she found none. Silence was my message. The universe had spoken through her own actions. and I simply allowed its justice to manifest fully, elegantly, unhurriedly. In the end, she confronted herself alone. No confrontations, no declarations, only reflection. I never needed revenge, I needed only truth. Every misstep, every betrayal, every selfish act she had committed returned to her, unrelenting and precise. And I remained outside the chaos, calm, watching. She realized too late that life punishes deceit, not with anger, but with the quiet erosion of trust, respect, and opportunity. I walked away from the remnants of a story she wrote with lies, leaving her to sit with the silence she created. And in that silence, justice spoke louder than any word I could utter.